Welcome to the Big O Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe.
Still the same damn kid from Oklahoma, same old dreams hanging off my shoulders, wishing and waiting on a shooting star for all to see.
And now your host, straight out of Oklahoma, former Buffalo Bill, Jerry Ostrowski.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma.
Welcome in, everybody. It is Wednesday night, 8 Eastern, 7 Central Time. That can only mean one thing. This dude. It's the Big O Show here on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network. We are powered by Believe. Thanks for joining us tonight as we roll towards training camp, obviously in the doldrums of late June, early July. We've got approximately 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks to go before we get to St. John Fisher for 11 practices at St. John Fisher, as the Buffalo Bills will then begin the 2025 NFL season. Appreciate those jumping into the comments. If you have any questions, put them up. If they're good, we'll talk about them. But tonight, we're going to talk about Josh Allen and how Josh Allen has flipped the script, how he's changed the narrative as far as the national media, the league administrators, and even his peers after last season's MVP. We'll talk about that. But as always, folks, we appreciate if you hit the like and subscribe, review the show, tell your friends. This is the Big O Show, a show about the Bills, hosted by a former Buffalo Bill on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network, and we are powered by Believe, and you know this. But again, tonight's topic, a little bit about Josh Allen, and just real fast, wanted to just kind of drop some numbers upon you in case you forgot. Josh Allen's 2024 MVP statistics from this past season. Obviously, passing-wise, Josh had 307 completions on 483 attempts. That's a 63.6 completion percentage. Had 3,371 yards, 28 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, 7.7 yards per attempt, 101.4 passer rating, 77.5 quarterback rating, 14 sacks. Was sack percentage was 2.82, and he had 2 game-winning drives rushing the football. As we know, Josh runs the ball extremely well, 102 attempts, 531 yards, 5.2 yards per attempt. And obviously, that is higher if you take the sacks out of there, but when you have to add the sack yardage and everything, you have a little bit less numbers at the end of the year. But again, 5.2 yards per attempt, 12 touchdowns. Receiving, it didn't officially count as a reception, but we all remember the play where he did get the ball thrown back to him for 7 yards and 1 touchdown. Josh Allen broke many NFL records in 2024. First player with 5 straight 40-plus total touchdown seasons. That was 2020 to 2024. First player with 35 or more passing and rushing touchdowns in 5 straight seasons. Same time frame, 2000 to 2024. Different time frame. First player since the NFL-AFL merger with 3 passing and 3 rushing touchdowns in a game. That happened December 8th, 2024 at the Los Angeles Rams. First player to record multiple career games of 340-plus yards passing, 60-plus yards rushing, 2-plus passing touchdowns, and 2-plus rushing touchdowns. Allen did that in weeks 14 and 15. First quarterback in league history to record a passing, rushing, and receiving touchdown in a game. That was against San Francisco, December 1st, 2024 in the snow. And then finally, the first player with at least 2 touchdown passes and 2 rushing touchdowns in consecutive games, and the first player all time with 3 such games in a season. unbelievable numbers, unbelievable production out of our quarterback, number 17, Josh Allen. But as you remember, heading into the 2024 season, what did people say about Josh Allen prior to the season? Well, let's take a look. And I don't have to get into the national media. We all know the national media's viewpoint of Josh was not good. Many called him a liability, a turnover machine, guy that just didn't have enough to get it done. Things are a little bit different now. But we'll talk about last year prior to last season. His peers, okay, other players in the league. And if you remember in an ESPN survey of NFL players, Josh Allen was voted the most overrated quarterback in the league. He received 11 votes, more than any other quarterback, including some guy that won the Super Bowl named Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, who tied for second with 10 votes. So Josh had one more votes than those two guys. The primary reason cited for this perception was Allen's high turnover numbers. Well, remember, in 2024, he had 6, and the Bills led the league in turnover ratio. some NFL executives had things that were not good to say about Josh Allen. One of the more overrated players in the NFL, a veteran NFL executive said, immense talent, but he makes a lot of mistakes. He's underdeveloped at winning at the line of scrimmage, tends to lock onto targets, more of a thrower than a precision passer, forces throws into traffic. That comment alone led Brandon Beane to have a press conference and talk about that situation and those comments. And as you know, many national media, and many that I don't even watch, but you know who they are, the Stephen A's, the Ryan Clarks, and the likes, had many negative things to say about Josh Allen. That was the narrative heading into the 2024 season. Not good enough. Doesn't protect the ball. Doesn't command the line of scrimmage. Makes too many big mistakes. But, as we all know, things start to change. Then this happens. Josh Allen gets a new deal. And Allen set a new mark with $250 million guaranteed in his new 6-year extension that will pay him $30 million or $330 million. So a record $250 million of that is guaranteed. But he didn't get to the Mendoza line. If you don't know what the Mendoza line is, folks, in baseball, the Mendoza line is a 200 batting average. It's kind of the basement, if you will. Anybody batting below 200, no bueno. But the Mendoza line, as far as quarterback contracts go, is $60 million per year right now. I can remember it used to be 50. A couple short years later, it's now $60 million per year average, which was set by Dak Prescott last season when Jerry Jones and the Cowboys gave him a huge extension. Allen took $55 million per season, which for Allen is a bargain. Granted, he got the $250 million guaranteed, but he took less than $60 million. Honestly, Josh is probably worth $65 million this season, if not more. He does mean that much to this Bills franchise. But somebody out there recently commented on this. And while you look at last year's MVP season, you look at this contract he's taken, the narrative has changed with the MVP award, but also the pressure has changed within the building at One Bills Drive. And recently, Mina Kimes spoke on this. Mina Kimes of ESPN, used to be an independent, went to ESPN. I like Mina. I think she does good work. All reporters do things that we like and don't like. especially when talking about our teams. But I think Mina's informed. I think she's a good reporter. And she has very, very interesting things to say. This contract, according to Mina Kimes, because of the $55 million per season for Allen, is a bargain. And then she goes on to say this. With Allen taking a friendly deal and leaving money in the pot to sign other players, okay, that pressure now has been placed squarely on the shoulders of Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills themselves. And here's why. When a quarterback goes out of his way to take a contract that friendly, a guy that could demand much, much more money, and this is the point that I don't think anybody wants to get into. Unlike what we're dealing with the James Cook situation, if Josh Allen walked in and said, I'm not taking anything less than $65 million a year, they would have signed him for that. They would have rolled the dice, is what they would have done. They would have rolled the dice. Because we've seen what the guy can do throughout his 7-year career, getting this franchise out of the 17-year drought, playing with a roster that's probably not good enough, and what he can do. So he takes the friendly contract, and now the pressure is being placed upon the front office because with that extra money, you have to be able to build a roster around Josh Allen. I think this is something that's of importance to put up. Ralph Wilson Sr., one of our very, very good viewers and listeners, says this. After the purge of veterans, many who were captains, the naysayers had the Bills being in second place of the AFC and leaned into that disrespect. What is the fuel this season? That's a good point. That's a very good point. And I might add this, Ralph. Veterans that we all liked, but veterans who were in a situation where it was probably time to go. Look at most of the big name vets that were released. Micah Hyde, while we brought him back, never played again. Jordan Poyer went to Miami for a year, didn't play at a high level, and was gone. Mitch Morris goes to Jacksonville, plays one season, and retires. So kudos to Brandon Beane for identifying veterans that were much past their prime, not worth the money they would demand, and moving on from that in a very non-disrespectful way, I must say. Cuts are hard. Cuts are always hard. They're hard for everybody. They're hard for the guy getting cut. They're hard for the franchise that's making the cuts, especially when it's players that have been great for your franchise. But we're going to get to that. What is the fuel for this season? And I think the fuel, honestly, always will be in Buffalo is nobody believes they can do it. I mean, that's why that locker room is pretty steeled. They're together, franchises together, because let's face facts, no matter what they do, most feel they'll somehow, some way mess it up and not get the job done. But when your quarterback takes less money, you've got to build a team around him to be able to be successful. Did the Bills do that? Well, they went out and signed some veterans. They signed Larry Ogunjobi. They signed Michael Hoyt. Well, guess what? Both those guys won't be here till week 8, because 7's a bye week as they sit out for suspensions. They did get Joshua Palmer, a guy that I feel really good about. I think he's a good player. Guy that fits into Buffalo. He's from outside of Toronto. He's a Canadian guy. Understands cold weather, understands the snow. I feel good about him. They go out and they signed Elijah Moore, who I think is going to be an integral piece of the offense. And we talk a little bit in some other shows, and we talked about it on the Overreaction Buffalo show with John and Joe this weekend. If you get a chance, check me out on Bill Squad with Joe Marino and Jeremy White on the Locked On channel. We do that every Monday and Thursday. We'll be on tomorrow at 12 Eastern. And we've talked about it on that show as well. Those guys should help that wide receiver room quite a bit. But when you look at the window, or the short title window that a franchise has around a player like Josh Allen, the pressure is already high considering how short that window is. Then you put Allen's discount deal on it, and it only puts a greater spotlight on the front office. Mina Kimes goes on to talk about this. She says another big thing in Buffalo this year is somebody needs to step up at receiver. Then when you're talking about an offense in Buffalo that faces a ton of man coverage, in part because defenses now are so afraid of the run game, it honestly is the difference between them winning and making it to a Super Bowl or not, Kimes says. You need somebody who can get you big plays down the field. Maybe it's Keon, maybe it's Dalton Kincaid. To me, that has been the missing piece in this offense, because it's not the quarterback that's the reason why they are not getting over the hump. That comment to me in itself is amazing. Would we have heard that last year before the 2024 season? No. Nothing remotely close to it. Not anywhere near that. The narrative last year was Josh Allen was overrated. Josh Allen wasn't good enough. Josh Allen makes too many mistakes. Josh Allen turns the ball over. Just whatever negative connotation you want to say, put Josh Allen in front of it, and that was being said. Now all of a sudden, the narrative and the script has been flipped. One MVP season, and the onus is not on the quarterback anymore. Let me say that comment again, because I think it's so interesting. To me, that has been the missing piece in this offense. And she's talking about a vertical passing game, which many of us have talked about at length. Because it's not the quarterback. That's the golden part of this statement. Because it's not the quarterback, that's the reason why they're not getting over the hump. Very, very interesting. Let me put this up from Richard Rush. Week 7 bye means we need the number 1 seed in the playoffs. Yes and no. I see where you're coming from, Richard. The bye week is early. We need another bye week later in the year to rest up. I for one, I struggle a little bit with the playoff week 1 buys, especially when your team's playing really well. Bye weeks tend to stop momentum. Some teams handle them very, very well. Some teams don't. I honestly think the Buffalo Bills, now it might be changing because of the age of the star players. They're getting more mature. I've always felt that Bills team was I don't want to say front runner type of team, but a team that thrived and ran on momentum. So if you go ahead and throw that bye week in there, does that screw that momentum up? I think you see that happen sometimes to a lot of younger teams, or teams that have young stars that are doing well. They get the bye week, and next thing you know, they're all discombobulated. But I think in this case, it would be appropriate. We'd like to get that week 1 bye and then play home the next week. I think that would be big time for the Buffalo Bills. Mina Kimes goes on to say this about the receivers. When you're talking about an offense in Buffalo, we already talked about that. She says you need somebody, like Keon, Dalton Kincaid, whatever, to step up and make plays. Here's the thing that I think she has wrong. If you look at analytics and you look at different parts of this Bills offense, and right now like I said, we're late June, we're into July, we're in the doldrums of NFL football talk, just begging and waiting for camp to start. Many have done shows. We talked about it this weekend on Sunday about what can the Bills do offensively to get better. And I think the low-hanging fruit in this complex question of the Bills getting better on offense from what they did last year is a vertical passing game. We do know that it's very important for the Buffalo Bills because They were top 5 in the league throwing the ball 20-plus yards last year. Now, their success rate was bottom 5, but they were top 5 in trying to establish some sort of downfield game. The other low-hanging fruit that we always go to is separators. Separators. We need separation at receiver. Separation. I don't think it's easy as that. I think separation comes in many, many forms. I think you got burners that separate with speed. I think you got precise route runners that separate with precision and route running. And I think you got big bully receivers that separate with physicality. And if you look at what the Bills did this offseason, I think they've addressed all 3 areas. If you look at Joshua Palmer, he's your separator with precision and route running. He's just fast enough to be an issue, but his precise route running and the understanding of soft spots in the zone and beating man coverage give him separation. Not just because he goes out there and flies downfield. I think more of the speed, agility guy is your Elijah Moore. I think Elijah Moore is a guy that can get open with shiftiness, with short bursts. And while he's a slot type guy, I think as we go through the progression of the play, and we all know that 17 is going to extend plays, that's going to give Moore time to find those open areas and get open with his speed and shiftiness. Don't think you can cover him as long as you'd have to in those situations. The other thing we talked about separation-wise is physical bully ball wide receivers. And I've talked about that on the show with Keon Coleman. And the biggest indicator to me that he's embracing that role in the NFL is that when he showed up to OTAs, he was already bigger, he was more muscular, he was thicker, and he looks more like he did his senior season at Florida State. And I think that when he came out of Florida State, he got all tied up into the combine. I got to run faster. I got to do this. I got to do that. Probably lost some weight, worked more on his speed game, worked more on running 40s, and lost what makes him great. And what makes Keon Coleman great is he's a former high-level basketball player, as shown by scoring 60 points in DeMar Hamlin's charity game. Don't care who it's against, it's still 60 points. And he's a guy that can get separation by verticality. He can go up and get the football. He's got strong hands. He can high point it. He can do those things. Now I want to see him ragdolling corners and doing those things to get off of coverage. And I think we're going to see more of that. If you're wanting Keon Coleman to go out there and be this precision route runner, okay, to get open or to be the shifty guy to get open, that's not his game. His game's physicality, and actually probably can get open more naturally at slot because he gets more room and coverage. Usually guys that cover slot receivers, you get a little bit more room. You're off the ball, those types of things. But I'm anyway happy and excited to see that he's embraced what made him great at Florida State, which is the physicality side of it. But I go on to say this. I think Mina Kimes is correct. It's a big year for the Buffalo Bills front office. It's a big year for the Buffalo Bills receivers rooms. One area that we not touch on is tight ends. Obviously, she brought up by name Dalton Kincaid. I think Dalton Kincaid got open some last year. I also think Josh Allen didn't get him the ball accurately a lot of the time. Joe Marino did a series on this, or did a show on this, where he talked about how many times Josh was inaccurate throwing the ball to Dalton Kincaid, and it was pretty high numbers. So if anything, if you want to talk about where Dalton Kincaid can get better, because I didn't think it was fair what Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott did to him when the season was over, knowing, as Maggie says over in the comments, I think Kincaid was hurt more than was let on last year, and I agree with that 100%. I don't think it's we got to gain 15 pounds, we got to do 500 pounds on the bench, we got to do this, we got to do that. Because if you go ahead and do all that stuff, he loses what makes him great. He's a smooth athlete. His max is probably 245. If he gets to 250, does he lose all those attributes? He's not a big tight end. We didn't draft him to be a big end of the line tight end. We drafted him to be a guy that can play slot and do multiple things in the passing game because everybody's trying to find that tight end right now. But the biggest thing he can do this offseason, besides his health and those things, build that rapport with Josh Allen. Build the rapport so Josh trusts him, where he's going to be, what he's going to do, so that we can get Josh more accurate with the football when he gets it to Kincaid. So if you want to talk about things like that, that to me anyway is where we can get Dalton Kincaid better. His just overall relationship on the field with Josh Allen. But I thought it was important to talk about this, and I thought Mina said a lot of good things. And like I said, I know she catches strays from time to time. I'm not one of them. I think she's very well versed. She's very well studied up, and she does a good job. But when you looked at the narrative from 2024 about Josh Allen and the narrative now in 2025, the script has completely been flipped. The narrative has changed. If the Bills don't get to the Super Bowl this year, evidently it's because of the wide receiver room. And obviously we all know this. We're talking offense, but we know this as well. And they have poured almost the entire amount of resources they could this offseason into this side of the ball. But the defense, to me anyway, has to get better. Has to get better. And I would think they're going to get better, not just because of the players they brought in free agency, the players they drafted, but also the coaching staff and the additions that they've made on that side of the ball. All resources are over there besides the few on offense. Daniel says this season will be year 3 for Kincaid. Year 3 is a make or break year. Hope Josh can be more accurate towards him and he can step up his production big time. I'm not sure young players, their make or break years are year 3. I know where you're coming from, Daniel. We traded up for the guy. We jumped in front of Dallas. We traded up for him. We expect a lot out of him, but he's on a 4-year guaranteed with a 1-year option. So if we want to look at first round picks, to me anyway, make or break years are year 4, because then we start talking about is the team going to pick up the 5th-year option? What I think the biggest thing you want to see out of young players anyway, not necessarily as a make or break year, are we seeing progression? Are we seeing them getting better and better? I think Kincaid was doing some things well early before he got hurt. I really do. I think he was doing some good stuff. But if you're a movement style tight end and you're a guy that relies on your athleticism and you've got a torn PCL and this weird skin laceration, ulcer, whatever you want to call it on your leg, probably going to hamper your athletic ability. If that's the biggest thing you've got going into it, then it's probably going to be tough for you. It's probably going to be tough for you. This isn't like a guy that's known for his strength and he blows a peck or something like that. This is a big deal to these guys that are athletes. But no, I just wanted to touch on this. I thought it was very, very interesting. Josh Allen flips the script. We're no longer talking about Allen as a liability. We're no longer talking about Allen as a quarterback that just gets by on athleticism. We're not talking about Allen anymore as a guy that can't get it done. Now we're talking about, you've got Josh Allen. What are you doing with the rest of the football team? And I think that's pretty important to talk about. I think it's pretty interesting that we're maybe a year and how things have changed. So anyway, this is the Big O Show on the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Network. We are powered by Believe. You can check us out on YouTube. Our episodes are always up there. Then you can head over to any of the podcasting platforms, as tomorrow the show will be up if you want to listen to it on your way to work, while you're at work, hanging out at the house or whatever. I know it's summertime. Some of you guys are hanging out by the pool, throwing a little bit of overreaction, learn a little bit about the Buffalo Bills. So I appreciate you as always. Thanks, folks, for watching and listening. Again, hit the like, hit the subscribe, review the show, tell your friends. Thank you very much. We'll be back Sunday night, and I'll have another Big O show next Wednesday before we head to the greatest and best holiday of the year, the 4th of July. So once again, folks, thanks as always. Much love. Go Bills.
I'm still the same damn kid from Oklahoma. Same old dreams hanging off my shoulders. Wishing